Hello and welcome again, people. For this video, I want to talk about how to use a GMT watch. Now, and the reason why I want to do that is slightly a bit of a follow-on from the last video, which was the review of this watch, the Ingersoll GMT 3218 BK. And there seems to be some confusion when I talk to people, admittedly maybe people who are not completely into horology or only in a very superficial way. And I just want to put this out there. What's on YouTube seems to be mainly regarding how to use the Rolex GMT Master II, or at least the top hits are about that. So I just want to put out a couple of examples of different watches. Now, I'll start with this, which is a Ball Engineer Hydrocarbon GMT. I'll put links to technical details or at least a sales listing down below. Now, this watch, obviously as you can see, has a green GMT hand and GMT on the dial, also in green, as you can see there. This has a weakness, and some GMTs may come in this format. This is that the 24-hour markings on the bezel, are on the bezel that does not rotate. That there's no ability to rotate that bezel, so it's fixed. So in this sense, it intuitively again makes sense to me to put the GMT hand at Greenwich Mean Time, GMT +0. The way that this watch is adjusted, you cannot set the hour hand independently. You can only set the GMT hand independently, and I'll do it here. As you turn it this way, you can see the GMT hand rotates. All right, so I'm just going to go all the way around. 11 p.m. in Perth, and therefore it is 3 p.m. at GMT. So roughly 1500 hours there. All right, and with a watch like this, I think it makes most sense to leave the green hand at GMT and set your time to where you are. Some watches like this have a fairly handy reference at the back, as you can see there. Sorry, is it coming into focus? You can see there it actually has a 24-hour circle at the back, and it lists various locations and the time zone that it sits at. Yeah, so a handy little reference. So, when you're traveling to different places, what you do is you pretty much set the time to local time and then adjust the green GMT hand to whatever GMT happens to be at the time, and work out your relevant other time zones that way. Not as useful as a watch with a bezel that can rotate, but there are models that are akin to this one. Now, this other one, the Ingersoll, is not an uncommon format as well. Now, again, there's a 24-hour bezel, but this one rotates. This one's an inner rotating bezel as opposed to the outer rotating bezel that you may see in some other watches. In this case, again, it's similar in that the GMT hand, cannot be set independently. Right now, I've got the time slightly wrong. It's actually 11 a.m. I've got to turn it to 11 p.m.-ish. What exactly is it around there? Okay, so just past 11 p.m. in Perth, and at Greenwich Mean it is, as you can see there, just past 3 p.m., just past 1500 hours. And in this case, I do prefer to use a watch like this, setting the GMT hand at GMT plus 0, and referencing time by using the inner bezel, while setting the main hands at your current location. So again, Perth, GMT plus 8, so it's currently just short of 10 past 11, and I'm going to use this really just the world time on the on an Apple device. So you can see there straight away, Los Angeles 16 hours behind, or GMT minus 8. So to find out what time it is in Los Angeles, you kind of rotate this. Sorry, just wait until it focuses. Okay, so you kind of rotate this backwards, minus 8. So that would make it 1600 hours at the top, which would make Los Angeles time currently just past 7 a.m. And sure enough, there it is, just past 7 a.m. As a plus example, or a GMT plus hours example, I'll get that bezel back to 0 with a 2400 hours at 0 position. So say I want to go to Melbourne, plus 11. So I'll go to GMT plus 11 right there, and this tells me that the time in Melbourne is currently just past 2 a.m. Which you can confirm with many other sources. There you go, just past 2 a.m. So that's the way I prefer to use my GMTs. There's slightly different ways to use it, but I think that those are the ways that make the most sense to me. I'd like to hear if you've got any different ideas on how you use your GMT, and if you've got any other variations of GMT. And I've deliberately put these out there because they work differently to what seems to be the most popular GMT, being referred to, the Rolex GMT Master II. There's no way to independently set the hour hands on these watches. You have to wind it across to the time that you want. And as an example, the way to set this watch is to set the time and then independently set the GMT hand. Whereas in this one, you really got to wind backwards to get the time to the correct relation to the GMT hand. It's a little bit annoying, but there are watches out there like that. And just a last mention, and this is something that I find surprising, that a lot of my acquaintances, relatives, friends who may not be very horologically inclined may not be aware that the times on your internet connected devices are, for just about all intents and purposes, perfect. They are intermittently synchronized with atomic time, international atomic time. So you can rely on these times as long as you have an internet connection. If you don't, then it goes into an internal time clock, and it may go off over time, which I've seen it done actually on some of my devices, which I've disconnected from the internet. All right, so there we go. That's the video. I hope that's informative and enjoyable. Let me know what you think, and see you next time.